Good morning, fourth grade. Welcome to language class. Today we're starting a brand new chapter that I'm really excited about. But first, I would like for you, as soon as you have your language book and your pencil all set, I would like for you to stop and think about what a flower looks like to you. What does it look like? What color is it? What shape is it? How tall is it? I happen to have one with me this morning. Let's see if mine looked like anything that you imagined. What do you think? Does it look a little different than what you had in mind? Okay, so I'm going to describe mine to you. Okay, so this has 3 blooms on it, but each one is like a cluster of blooms. It's got many different little blooms on each big flower. It's like a puffball, and it has long, slender green leaves that are sprouting up at the bottom. The color of the flower it's light green, but then it has white little tips on all of it going all the way around. Isn't that interesting? How creative our God is. I love looking at all the different flowers that He's made. We surely serve a creative God. Now, what I love about our chapter is that we're going to be talking about adjectives. Adjectives are words that describe nouns. Remember what a noun is? A noun is a person, like you. A place, like my kitchen table. A thing, like a flower. Or an idea, like charity, or freedom, or patriotism. So we need to know what nouns are first. Nouns are people, places, things, and ideas. How you describe those things are called adjectives. So when I was describing this thing, this noun, this flower, I was describing it by telling you the shape, the size, the color, how it felt. It's kind of pokey and spiky a little bit. When we use adjectives, it really paints a better picture in our mind about what we're talking about. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you this morning so that you can see what I can see. I've made something fun that I hope that you'll enjoy today. We're talking about adjectives, and you can go ahead and open up your book to page 237, and we'll get to page 238 by the end of our lesson today. Well, first of all, we need to know what is an adjective. Adjectives describe nouns. Remember, a noun is a person, place, thing, or an idea. Tell me what a noun means. A noun is a person, place, thing, or an idea. When we're talking about an adjective, you might see it abbreviated this way, ADJ period. Adjectives will always describe nouns. And to help us, there are 5 questions that an adjective can answer about a noun. These are, which one, what kind, how many, how much, and whose. Can you say those 5 questions with me? Which one, what kind, how many, how much, whose. Again, which one, what kind, how many, how much, whose. One more time. Which one, what kind, how many, how much, whose. Very good. Those are the 5 questions that an adjective will answer. And let me show you how an adjective can answer those 5 questions. I have 5 sentences I'd like to share with you. The yellow flower grew in the garden. Notice that I put flower in blue, my favorite color. That's the noun. Now, we could describe the flower by asking ourselves, well, which one? It's the yellow one. It paints a better picture in our mind of what the flower looks like. Flower, yellow, is describing flower. I could take yellow out and the sentence would still make sense. It just makes it more vivid in our mind when we put an adjective inside that sentence. The happy flower grew in the garden. I hope my flowers are happy today. I hope you're happy today. What kind of flower? Well, happy flower. Happy is describing the flower. One flower grew in the garden. How many flowers? Just one. One is describing flower. Many flowers grew in the garden. How much? Well, many. Oftentimes with how many and how much, it might not necessarily be a number like 1, 2, 7, 24. It could be a word like some or many or much, several, few. So when we think about how many and how much, let's not always think about numbers, but also think about words that tell how much is in the group. Many here is describing flowers. And lastly, mom's flowers grew in the garden. Well, whose flowers are they? They're mom's. Mom's tells us who the flowers belong to. Okay, now you probably noticed that I have a big chart right here on my board today, and it's a little far away, so I wanted to get it a little closer to you. Adjectives describe nouns. They tell, now they only give us 3 questions here. What kind, how many, which one? But can we say all 5? Here we go. Which one, what kind, how many, how much, whose? Let's say it again. Which one, what kind, how many, how much, whose? Let's look at the bottom row going across. What kind of truck is that? A plastic truck. Truck is the noun. Plastic describes the truck. Spoon, that's the noun. What kind of spoon is it? It's a metal spoon. Marbles, how many marbles are there? 5. Lemon, what kind of lemon? A sour lemon. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen just for a minute, but we'll come back to that in just a moment. Let's go ahead and take a look at our book. And just to be clear, remember, adjectives always describe nouns. A noun is a person, place, thing, or an idea. Now, I have taught you that there are 5 questions that an adjective can answer. Can you name them with me? Which one, what kind, how many, how much, whose? On our chart, it listed 3. But in your book, you're only going to need to be responsible for 2 questions. And I put those 2 questions on my board. Let's take a look. Our 2 questions are what kind and how many. What kind and how many. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at that first section in our book this morning. The instructions say to circle the adjective that describes the underlying noun. Then we're also going to be circling what question that answers, which one of our adjective questions that answers. Let's look at number 1. Some deserts are near the mountains. I put just a section of this up on the board. I don't have my big boards like I have in the classroom, so I didn't write the whole thing up there for us today. But let's take a look at what I do have. Some and deserts. Did you find the noun? It's underlined for us. Deserts. Now let's ask the 2 questions. What kind of deserts or how many deserts? Some answers the question, how many? Let's circle some and let's go ahead and draw that arrow from some to deserts. Some is answering the question, how many? Let's circle that, how many? Number 2, mountains keep the rain away from the hot desert. What kind of desert do we have? Or how many deserts do we have? We have a hot desert here. Does that answer what kind or how many? What kind? Let's circle that. Number 3, strong wind forms dunes in deserts. Winds is our noun, it's a thing. What kind of winds do we have? Or how many winds do we have? Strong winds. Strong describes what kind of wind we have. Does it answer what kind or how many? What kind? Let's circle that. Did you notice that for these adjectives in these three sentences, the adjectives always came right beside the noun that they described? That will oftentimes be the case. Many times the adjective will come right out in front. And that is the case for the three that we have here. But we're also going to learn a little later on today that adjectives can also come after the verb. They have a special name. We'll learn that in just a little bit. Let's go down to number 4. Number 4, this time we're not only circling the adjectives, but we're underlining the nouns that they describe. Let's go ahead and continue by drawing those arrows, showing that this adjective is describing that word. Describe means it's giving more information about it. Let's look at number 4. Deserts have dry climates. Well, climates is our noun. It's a thing. Remember, we learned about climate in California history. We learned that we have a Mediterranean climate here in California. But this climate that we're talking about is dry. Let's circle dry and draw our arrow to climates. Number 5, hot deserts have temperatures of over 100 degrees. This one actually has 2 in there. Deserts is our noun. What kind of deserts do we have? Well, they're hot. Have you ever been in a hot desert before? I have. The first time I ever met Mr. Evans, we got stuck outside, locked outside of our car in a hot desert in Arizona. It was 117 degrees outside. So yes, I have definitely been in a hot desert. And thankfully we lived to tell about it. Okay, now back to our language. Enough story time with Mrs. Evans. Number 5, hot is describing deserts, but also degrees. In the story that I was telling you about Mr. Evans and myself, I was saying that it was very hot and it was 117 degrees. Well, it was definitely over 100 for sure. Circle 100, let's draw our arrow, 2 degrees. That's answering the question, how many? And that's a lot. Number 6, cold deserts receive snow instead of rain. Oftentimes when we think of deserts, we think of really hot places, but deserts can also be really cold. 2 extremes, almost like opposites. Deserts is still our noun, it's still a place, but what kind of deserts are we talking about here? Cold deserts. And number 7, 8 deserts in the world are cold deserts. Deserts are definitely going to be our nouns. Again, I'm seeing a trend, all the deserts here. How many deserts? 8. What kind of deserts? They were cold. Now, for all of the examples that I gave you, the adjective came right before the noun that it describes, and that will oftentimes be the case. The next thing that we're going to be learning about is how to diagram these adjectives that we just learned how to identify. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you so you can see what I can see. Let's go back to the basics of diagramming. If you can draw a line, you can diagram. It starts out with a straight line. After you've drawn your straight line, cut your line in half. On the left side, you'll always have your simple subject. It goes right there. On the other side, you'll have your simple verb. Your verb goes on the right side. This is just the basic diagram. This is the most basic diagram that you'll have. Now, when we're talking about diagramming adjectives, you diagram the adjective underneath the noun that it describes. Let's say that the noun is describing the adjective is describing our subject. We would draw a line underneath the subject and then write the adjective on the line. Let's look at some samples. The hungry dog waited in his house. Now, we've already talked about prepositional phrases, so I'm going to put those in parentheses. There's our our action verb, waited. Who is doing the waiting? The dog. So the dog is the subject of the sentence. He's the star of the sentence. And we could say the dog waited in his house just fine. However, there was an extra word that they put in there to describe or give us more information about the dog. What kind of dog is it? Well, it's a hungry dog. And it's also, which dog? The dog. When we diagram it, we'll, of course, draw our line, cut it in half, subject on the left, verb on the right. The and hungry both give us more information about the noun dog. So we're going to draw two lines underneath dog. The will go first, and hungry will go next. I'll have another lesson coming up about why the is an adjective, so stay tuned. Okay, now before we get to this, let's go ahead and do that last section that's on your page. It's section number 8. It says that we are to go back to number 6 and diagram the subject, the verb, and the adjective. They've already done the first step, and that's to draw the line for us. Let's go ahead and do the next step by diagramming our subject and our verb. Let's go. Okay, I've drawn my line. I cut it in half. My simple subject went on the left. My simple verb or my simple predicate went on the right. Then I drew a diagonal line underneath my subject because the word cold gives us more information about the word deserts. Notice that cold is the first word in our sentence, and we always capitalize the first word in a sentence. If it's capitalized in the sentence, it's going to be capitalized in our diagram. And there you have it. However, before I let you loose on that independent practice page, there's one more thing that I need to teach you for you to be ready to do the back page. This is just how to diagram the adjectives that come in front of the nouns that they describe. Earlier in the lesson, I told you that sometimes an adjective will come after a verb. That's what I want to teach you how to diagram next. You will have a few of those on the independent practice page in just a little bit. So pay attention. This is a little bit different, a little bit wacky. And we have to go back to what we've already known about linking verbs first. Okay. This is about predicate nouns and predicate adjectives. So here we go. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why does it say linking verbs? Well, in order to have a predicate noun or a predicate adjective, you must have a linking verb. I'll say that again. If you're going to have an adjective that's in the predicate part of the sentence, that's describing the subject, you have to have a linking verb. Let's review what our linking verbs are. Can you sing our song? Okay. Remember, a linking verb's job is to link or connect the subject to another word in the sentence. Here we go. Am, is, are, was, were, be, been, been, have, has, had, do, does, did, shall, will, should, would, may, might, must, can, may, might, must, can, and could. Am, is, are, was, were, be, been, been, have, has, had, do, does, did, shall, will, should, would, may, might, must, can, may, might, must, can, and could. Those are our linking verbs. Notice how there will be a linking verb in every one of these sentences that I show you as an example. Today is a rainy day. Is our linking verb. The clouds were extremely dark. Were is a linking verb. It was a dark and stormy night. Was is a linking verb. I know these are linking verbs because I could not ask you to act out any of these words. I couldn't say, Sammy, stand up and demonstrate how to is. Or Francesca, go ahead and show us how to were. Or Michael, show us how to do a was. You can't really do those. They're not action verbs. They're just connecting something in the predicate part back to the subject, okay? All right, now that we've reviewed what our linking verbs are, the predicate nouns and the predicate adjectives work the same way. The only difference is one is a noun that's renaming the subject, and the other one is an adjective describing the subject. But they'll both have a linking verb out in front. I'm going to use those same sentences as our examples. Today is a rainy day. Is still a linking verb. Today is our subject. Today is, day would be our predicate noun. It's renaming today. Renaming that word right there. The clouds were extremely dark. Were is our linking verb. Who or what is the subject of the sentence? Clouds. It's the star of the sentence. The clouds were, well, how could we describe those clouds? Which clouds were they? Well, they were the dark ones. They were extremely dark. Dark is an adjective that comes in the predicate part of the sentence. It still describes clouds, but it's going to be diagrammed much differently. Hold on. Okay, I'm back. You'll never guess who came to my door. First of all, I'm so sorry for the interruption, and Abby and Emma were going totally nuts. But you'll never guess who came to my door. Now, we kept our distance. I didn't give any hugs or anything, but Miss Maya, thank you for coming to visit me. So I got a little something for Easter. I'm so excited. And some fan mail. So I'm definitely going to add my fan mail to my wall. So I'm going to have fan mail going all the way everywhere, okay? Thank you so much. Okay, so how would I describe this card? I would describe it as colorful, beautiful. How would I describe the sky? Blue, clear. How about this flower? How cool, she put a flower on there. And we're talking about flowers. It's yellow, it's happy. Got some green grass. How would I describe the note? Sweet, friendly. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone else that have written me. I got something from a little note from Miss Alacia and one from Miss Gracie. And I haven't checked my mailbox today, so I might have some more in there. So thank you so much. Oh, and I got one from Mrs. Cooper. How sweet. There's her two little boys, Silas and Deacon, from Haiti and Colombia. So this is my total fan mail station right over there. Okay, so back to our lesson. Sorry, I was totally sidetracked by my visitor, but it was such a welcome experience. Okay, let's get back. So we were talking about how adjectives make our world a beautiful place, and how adjectives can come in front of a noun, or they can come later on in the sentence, like dark did. How about the next one? It was a dark and stormy night. Well, what is the it there? Well, it is actually referring to the night. Okay, what is it? Well, it was nighttime. That's when it was dark and stormy. But dark and stormy actually describe what kind of night it was. Now, Let's talk about diagramming. If you have a predicate adjective. Now, I'm going to throw in predicate nouns just because you diagram them exactly the same. And you start out exactly the same with a straight line, cut it in half, the subject goes on the left, the verb goes on the right. Here's where it gets a little different. So buckle up. Here we go. This is what we have typically, okay? But notice this time, the verb is a linking verb. Remember, linking verbs connect something back to the subject. If you have a linking verb, be ready, here's some alliteration coming. You will add a lazy, leaning line to the left. I will say that again. When you have a linking verb, you will add a lazy, leaning line to the left of that linking verb. Ooh, there it goes. And you will add your predicate noun or your predicate adjective right after that. Let's look at those sentences that I was just talking about. Today is a rainy day. Is still a linking verb. Today is still our subject. Day is still a predicate noun. We would draw our line. We would cut it in half. Today goes on the left. Is a linking verb. It goes where the verb goes. Because we have a linking verb, we need to have a lazy, leaning line to the left and write our predicate noun or predicate adjective right after that. Let's try this next one. This is an example of a predicate adjective. You will have this kind on your back page, so be ready for this. Were is our linking verb. Clouds is the star of the sentence. We call that the subject. Clouds were, well, what were they? What kind of clouds did we have? They were dark. Draw your line, cut it in half. The subject goes on the left. Write the verb next. Because we have a linking verb, we're going to have a lazy, leaning line to the left and write our predicate adjective after that. Okay, you guys did well. I know it's a lot to take in, but let's go ahead and review. An adjective describes a noun. It answers the questions, what kind, how many, how much, whose. Oh, which one, what kind, how many, how much, whose. Oh, I miscounted. Which one, what kind, how many, how much, whose. Adjectives describe nouns. What are nouns? People, places, things, and ideas like charity or faith or love, okay? Now, typically, adjectives will come right in front of the noun that they describe. But if they come after a linking verb, we'll need to have a lazy leaning line to the left if we're going to diagram those. Okay, it's time for us to turn the page and get started on that independent practice page. I can't wait to hear how you did, especially on that diagramming. I'll see you next time during our next FaceTime, Zoom call, or Google Duo. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.